From the PSIA-AASI satellite studios in Corvallis, Oregon, I'm George Thomas. You're listening to First Chair. We've got quite the discussion with Pete Allison for you right now. Pete, always great to chat with you. Thanks for making the time.
Thanks, George. Good to see you.
Now, you have just come back from a very interesting trip to Bulgaria where you attended a symposium, which sounds like you were very qualified to attend with what you're doing at Penn State. Can you share with us what that was about?
Absolutely. So I think it was really interesting. I think it was a very exciting symposium. So this was the first international symposium on snow sports education in universities, and it was hosted by the National Sports Academy in Sofia in Bulgaria. And over the last couple of years, the team in Sofia at NSA, National Sports Academy, have been kind of cooking up this idea of bringing together people who work in this area. And we worked with them along with my role at IASS, the International Association of Education and Science in Snow Sports, to get this off the ground. And so there were about 25 people there for 4 days, and there were, let me see, 10 different countries represented: Austria, Bulgaria, Canada, Germany, Romania, Serbia, Slovenia, Sweden, UK, and USA were all there. So it was quite the gathering.
Now, you've listed some countries where there are some pretty spectacular resorts to slide on snow. Why Bulgaria?
Well, the team in Bulgaria, Petter and Chris, who are the two people who really organize things. Petter is on the Interski Presidium, and Chris is on the IASS Presidium as well, along with me and Dave Schuling, who many of the listeners will know. And they decided they actually got some funding support from the National Sports Academy to host this and to do a lot of the organization. And so we were hosted very kindly by them in Sofia, and we spent the first day on their campus and in a very very nice meeting room that felt like it was the kind of place where you would host the Olympic Committee. So I, of course, felt very out of place in there. And so we had the first day there, and then the next day we went up into the local mountains to their mountain hut called Vitosha, and we spent 2 or 3 nights there, and it was wonderful. This mountain hut that sleeps 100 people, and we
how can you call that a hut? I think of a hut sleeping like 3 to 4 people.
a handful of people. Yeah, it was very, very nice. Great facilities. And they use that to train their students. So they take students up there for 2 weeks. And that is part of how they train students in the National Sports Academy in snow sports. So all of the students who do a degree there have to spend at least 2 weeks up there learning to ski. And it's not just alpine skiing, it's snowboarding, it's cross country and ski touring as well. And they have all the equipment to kit everybody out up there. It's pretty fantastic. They've got, it's really a kind of private ski resort. They have their own piste machines that help to bring things up. That's the only way of getting things up to the hut. So to bring food up to the hut and to bring bags and that kind of thing. And the students have to walk 2 hours to get up there. And then they spend 2 weeks up there. And then at the end, they walk the 2 hours back down again and then catch a bus back to campus. So it's a pretty remarkable setup. Pretty fantastic to see that. And I feel very fortunate to have been able to see it and experience it.
Something you're going to start mirroring at Penn State?
I would love to. I would love to do that. I'm not sure that's in the books, but it would be very nice to be able to do that kind of thing for sure.
So what were some key takeaways that you got from let's just call it a week you were there?
Yeah, so it was really a super week, and one of the things that's nice about I think there were about 25 people in total, something like that, there. And one of the really nice things about that was that there was time to chat and to talk around um, what happens in everybody's countries and why they do it that way and that kind of thing. So we did do some mini presentations, just talking about kind of high level how we educate people within our respective countries. And we really focused in focused in really on two main questions. One was around how do we make snow sports more attractive to students, or how do we motivate students to be more involved in snow sports? So thinking about future generations. And then the other thing that we talked about, which is related again, is we talked about 21st century skills and how we might think about um, teaching snow sports, both snow sports instructors and then also people who are learning snow sports, as developing these capacities that are sometimes referred to as 21st century skills, or another model that I've been working with recently is inner development goals, which I think articulate really nicely with a lot of what people learn and develop in snow sports.
Now, 21st century skills, I'm seeing hover skis, hoverboards, automatic grooming that you can like zap out in front of you as you're sliding. What are you talking about?
Well, it's not uncommon for people to say to me, Pete, what are you talking about? So I'm quite used to that kind of question, George. Um, so two, I guess what I would say about this is there's kind of um, two ways of thinking about this in um, in the literature. One is 21st century skills as they're viewed from the World Economic Forum. And the World Economic Forum do all of these surveys and do this huge amount of work kind of behind the scenes. And they're interested in what kind of skills future workforces will need. And so that's what they're kind of driven by, is what do we need to keep economies going around the world? And so they identify in their 21st century skills trends and patterns, and then they talk about kind of foundational literacies, competencies, and character qualities. And they list 16 in those three areas of things that are helpful for people to be employable. And they're things like, so I'll read you a couple from each of those. So under foundational literacies is literacy, numeracy, scientific literacy, ICT, that's information communication technology literacy. So they're kind of literacies that they see as being essential to get on in life and to work in life. And then they talk about competencies. So things like, in that category, they've got things like creativity, communication, collaboration as examples. Now, immediately we can start to see connections to snow sports right away. And then under character qualities, a couple from here: curiosity, initiative, persistence, grit, adaptability, leadership, all kind of under the character qualities category. So we got those three categories, and to me, they're interesting because they're all things that the World Economic Forum are saying this is what we need in the workforce in the future.
Yeah,
So
I was
that's
just going to
one.
say this is going to be way too broad of a question, but I mean, what you're listing there makes us better people, and as you said, more employable
Absolutely.
and better workers when we are employed.
And I'm pretty confident that the listeners will be able to make connections straight away with those things. And if you do a Google search on World Economic Forum 21st century skills, there's a number of different images come up, so people can easily find this stuff. The other thing that I think is interesting is to contrast that, if you like, with the Sustainable Development Goals, which many people will be I would expect people to be familiar with. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And so they're things like, wouldn't it be great if in the world we could get to a point where there was no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitization, all of those kinds of things. And so, that's, I mean, my guess is a lot of the listeners will be familiar with those, or will have, if you Google it, you will see the image and go, oh yeah, I've seen that around. That's fairly well kind of promoted. One of the things that I think is interesting about that is that from that has flowed the Inner Development Goals framework. And so the idea here is that in order to reach those lofty Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, because we all love a good acronym, in order to reach those, there are 5 inner development goals. And the idea here is that if we can work on ourselves, that enables us to reach those bigger, lofty goals of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And so these are more, if you like, the World Economic Forum things are requirements or asks from the economy, whereas the Sustainable Development Goals, I would say, are oriented around making the world a better place, if you like, or a broader kind of vision of what a good life is, what kind of world we want to live in, those kind of things. And that the inner development goals fall into 5 categories. And when I started looking at this and working with this, I thought, hang on, this is such a great fit with what we do in snow sports. It is shocking. And so the 5 inner development goals, and again, if people want to Google this, you can just Google inner development goals framework, and it you'll find it. 5 areas being relationship to self, thinking, cognitive skills, relating, caring for others in the world, collaborating, social skills, and acting, enabling change. And in each of those 5 categories, there are a whole host of statements. So things like, I'll take one from each of those 5, and I know this is a lot of words, but openness and learning mindset, sense making, empathy and compassion, communication skills, perseverance. Now, I think it would be hard to think of a snow sports lesson that doesn't involve or benefit from all of those 5 things. And in some ways, I would say, they're also the kind of qualities that we want in great snow sports instruction. That's part of that, all kind of fits together really nicely.
I got to say, Pete, you sound like a self-improvement therapist. I'm like, yeah, I would like to improve in all of those things.
Right. Me too. But I suppose I get excited about this because I think about these are ways in which we can help people to express the skills that they develop in learning to teach snow sports, and that these are transferable skills from snow sports into other areas of life, and from other areas of life into snow sports. So I know the people who are listening to this podcast will see these connections, and I guess I would just encourage everybody to take 10 or 15 minutes to Google Inner Development Goals Framework, or Sustainable Development Goals, have a look at those, and then have a look at the World Economic Forum 21st Century Skills, and you will see the connections. It's really hard not to see those connections, and I think that might help us in thinking about how we promote snow sports as a possible career to people, and help people to express the learning that they experience in snow sports, whether it's the general public in a lesson, or whether it's staff who are developing their skills to be snow sports instructors.
Pete, why the change? Why the development and growth? And because as I've been listening to you, my mind has really been drifting back to, I'm thinking of how coaching has changed. And, when I'm running track and hearing the football team, well, cross country, and hearing the football coaches out just screaming and yelling and being very in the person's face. And now when I'm running at a track at a high school, people are actually teaching, and I'm just like, wow, these kids on the team, I wish I could have gone through something like this, because they're really informing the kids, and it's so interesting to me to listen to them teach, and then listening to someone coach pole vault. I mean, all these things where it's actually teaching. And what do you think made that change in us as a society? Why the growth? What made the difference?
I mean,
Well,
I'm
and
not.
even taking that into snow sports. I mean, I started teaching in '86, so 38 years now, um, and it's 39. uh, it's you know, don't just stand in front of a line. All right, one at a time. And it's really changed, oh, so much for the better. I really, it's just wonderful. But what instigated that?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a whole host of different factors that have led that to happen. My own kind of read of it is that I think there's probably been a realization that the majority of people who come into snow sports or come into a lot of sport are not going to be elite athletes or make a full-time living doing this, just because by numbers and percentages you can only have so many people who are playing in the NFL, for example. um, there's only so much for that, and there's so much competition for that. And so and then I think there's also kind of this, we live a lot of us live in a culture of evaluation, feedback for everything and anything. And I think people probably started to realize, it's not that interesting to go and be talked at. And I know in physical education, um, there were a collection of studies a while ago that and those studies were using a technique called maximum class activity. And what they did was stood at the side and watched a physical education lesson, and watched how much time people were standing in line and how much time they were actually doing something. So if you think about a gymnastics lesson and people jumping over a box, there's a lot of standing around waiting, and then you run up, you bounce, you jump over the box, and that's your activity. And so the amount of time you've got being active is very small. Well, put that with the obesity agenda, and you start to realize, okay, we need to be teaching in different ways to keep children healthy. And so that's where this kind of idea of maximum class activity came from, of, okay, how do we, if we play team sports, maybe we can get everybody running around for more time, and that's probably going to be better for their health than standing around and then short bursts of activity. And I think that applies to snow sports as well, right? Is that people want to be moving and active, not least because it's cold as well, but a whole host of reasons. So I think there's probably a lot of those different parts, and I think just general kind of improvement in thinking about teaching and thinking about, um, my own kind of interest and biases towards, you know, I guess maybe we can just call it, broadly speaking, leisure education. Just getting people involved and engaged in healthy lifetime activities and overall health and well-being. And people who, will go skiing every weekend, or will go snowboarding every weekend, or for a week every year, and that's a healthy kind of habit to get into and say, okay, that's going to be my my vacation break, and I'm going to do that with my friends every year, and that's how I'm going to stay connected with them. And then as time goes on, people realize, oh, well, you know what, I'm not getting any younger. Maybe I better go to the gym for 2 months before that ski holiday that I've got booked. And so it kind of helps to promote healthy lifestyles, healthy habits, as that spins out.
And what was the overall response from all of the countries that were there? Was there agreement? Was there, hey, this is the way we need to be moving? What was the overall impression you got?
Yeah, so we've been working on a kind of summary report for that for the week, because there were so many great conversations and so many great ideas going on. I think one of the things that struck me was that there was, I think it'd be fair to say there was broadly agreement that there's not that many different ways of teaching, or that many great breakthroughs to be made in terms of the technical content of how a ski works or how a snowboard works. But I think there was a general feeling among that group that there was a lot of work that could be done on pedagogy, or didactics, as people refer to it in Europe a lot, and how people are teaching snow sports. And so thinking about how that can be shared, of different approaches to teaching and learning. And then also, I think the other thing was a kind of an ongoing discussion about how we can engage powers that be, if you like, to support and see the value in snow sports and get young people involved in snow sports earlier in life. So things like in large parts of Europe, that might mean trying to influence school boards, boards of education, political funding systems that might allow for young people to engage in snow sports during the year.
So in a way,
education.
as well as that, fancy that, teaching skills and people skills.
Who would have thought? Some nice connections there. Yeah. Yeah. So really great event, and I think we're finalizing that report for that, and I think the plan will be probably for there to be another one of these in a couple of years, and kind of keep that energy going and that sharing, and hopefully we'll have some more people involved next time around. For a first event, this was a really nice size, and I think at the next event we could probably manage to increase that size to, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 people, something like that, and have a few more countries represented and involved.
Well, that's just great. Thank you for all you do for the sport, Pete.
Well, it's great. I'm very passionate, and it's great fun, and it was great. Dave Schuling was there too. Dave is on the presidium for IAASS, and so it was great having Dave there too, and number of other people. Great to have kind of representation. Dieter Bubeck, who is the president of IAASS, he was there, and he obviously sits on the Interski Presidium as well. So it's great to see kind of all of these different, both countries and then the three pillar organizations of Interski working closely together to really promote the sport. And I think that's, in large part under the leadership of Eric Shackleton, previous PSIA-AASI president and AASI team member. So it's great to see him kind of influencing the world in world of snow sports in very positive ways.
Pete Allison joining us on First Chair. Always great to talk with you, Pete. Thank you very much.
Thanks, George.
From the PSIA-AASI Satellite Studios in Corvallis, Oregon, I'm George Thomas.